Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 46 based on novel. So let's start. A loud enough to burst people's eardrums suddenly rang through the whole space. At this moment, even Haimu's muscles at the corners of his eyes were forced to squeeze together. Between the teeth exposed at the corners of his mouth, he constantly sucked a trace of hot air. The huge fighting storm swept through the whole space. On the void, the cracks filled with the whole claw also sent out a dazzling golden light. Then, in a clear sound of breaking, such a big claw was so hard broken. Then, another terrible fighting storm swept away again, and this space was constantly destroyed by this wave of terrorist storms. The whole space has become a purgatory between people. Haimu, who was also bombarded by the fierce storm, retreated continuously, the void under his feet collapsed again and again, and the terrible vigorous wind bombarded his body. If he changed to an ordinary strong body, I'm afraid it would have been destroyed long ago. At this time, Haimu was finally unable to do what he wanted. Qingmu's resistance in the depths of his soul gradually became clear. If Xiao Yang could not be solved quickly and Qingmu woke up, he was afraid that he would have no chance to turn over. Bastard. I really think I can't deal with you. I'll show you the means of the Spirit Clan today. After a low drink, Ebony slapped his chest with a fierce palm, and then his face turned red, and a mouthful of blood essence spit out. As the blood essence was vomited out, Haimu's face quickly turned pale, and his breath suddenly fell to the bottom of the valley. On the contrary, at the moment, there was a cold smile on his mouth. The blood essence vomited out, and Ebony's dry palm also printed quickly. At this moment, all the fighting spirit in his body was merged into the blood essence. Until a moment, when a violent color flashed in the Darkwood's eyes, the right palm also slapped on the blood essence mass in front of him. After a palm, the blood essence mass of the size of the palm split and exploded, turned into drops of blood and sprinkled on the void. Drink. Shenlingen, give it to me. With a sharp drink, Blackwood raised his eyes and looked at the void above. At the same time, he raised his palm and palm up, trying to summon something. Shua. After a few breaths, a burst of breaking wind sounded. Blackwood made another violent drink, raised his palm in the void, and then pulled it back. The void cracked, and a strong tree root with a green body and a diameter of tens of feet broke out under this force. When he saw the root of the tree, the cruel smile on Haimu's face also expanded more and more. When the opposite Xiao Yang saw this, his eyebrows wrinkled slightly, and the mori white flame in his eyes burned more violently at this moment. It's no wonder that the Shenling family is no longer glorious in the past. It turns out that there are rebellious people like you, who wantonly waste the inheritance foundation left by their ancestors, but it's really a great treason, and the crime is not punishable. Although he thought so in his heart, Xiao Yang still didn't make a move. He really wanted to see the ability of the Shenling family. He also wanted to see how much Haimu could show the power of the Shenling family. Looking at the emerald green tree roots in front of him, Blackwood showed a cold color in his dark old eyes. His tongue died off his lips, and Blackwood squinted at Xiao Yang. Noticing Xiao Yang's insipid eyes, Haimu frowned, but even left his thoughts behind. The right palm becomes a claw, and the flat nail is as sharp as a blade at the moment. Then the right hand fiercely inserts into the root of the ginseng spirit tree in front of you, straight into the heart of the root. Boom! At the place where the milky white light group collided with the claw, there was another bang, and the terrible fighting storm swept like a tsunami again. At the moment, Blackwood's dark and deep old eyes have been completely replaced by dark green, and the shining light has an extremely evil feeling. And the dark green strange lines all over the body also send out bursts of strange light. The smell of Blackwood also recovers rapidly at an extremely terrible speed. In the face of the coming terrible storm, Haimu's reaction was just a light sound, but that's all. The terrible storm was like hitting the south wall, suddenly turned back and disappeared in the void together with the coming storm. Gaga, gaga. After a strange smile, the palm of Blackwood inserted into the tree root was pulled out fiercely. At the same time, the huge ginseng tree root was turned into debris with a bang. Gaga, gaga. Rock owl. Do you know how many years this ginseng spirit root will grow? Shaking away the debris, Blackwood felt the power of filling up again in his body, looked at Xiao Yang, and smiled. In this regard, Xiao Yang is non-committal. The black wood in front of him will answer him one by one. 4,000 years. 4,000 years of precipitation has just made a fighting emperor. Do you think it's easy? But it only took you less than half an hour to restore it to the level of 9 stars and half emperors. Listening to the words in Haimu's mouth, Xiao Yang couldn't help picking his eyebrows again, and his mouth was also a salty reply. Ha ha. If it can be used by me, it will not waste its whole life of cultivation. If it were alive, I don't know what it would think. If he were alive, would the spirit clan be like this? Hearing the words of Xiao Yang, Haimu suddenly became a little excited, and his mouth pointed directly at today's Shenling family. The Shenling people are complacent. They think they can be alone if they don't know the world, but what's going on in the mainland? Don't they old guys know? They are responsible for the ruin of the Shenling clan. I just want the Shenling clan to rise again. What's wrong? Why should they seal me? In the end, Haimu's mood was almost crazy. He constantly cursed the older generation of Shenling people, as if to vent all his anger over the past 10,000 years. Of course, the spirit clan needs to be revitalized, but you chose the wrong way. Your ancestors were wrong, but you shouldn't go the opposite way. The tree demon is a big taboo of the Shenling family. If you turn into a demon, that's enough. You talk a lot. I'm just giving you a chance to breathe. Do you really think you can be compared with me? After that, Blackwood was too lazy to make more words. When the fighting spirit in his body surged wildly, the broken connection between Blackwood and Sky Claw was forcibly linked again. Feeling the still violent power in the claw, Blackwood's mouth aroused a sneer. The Italian-level fighting skill is the Italian-level fighting skill. Even at this moment, it is still powerful and unparalleled. Shua. Suddenly, Blackwood moved forward, and his body shape had disappeared in place. At the same time, all the fighting spirit left in the claw was a crazy riot at this moment. Then the next moment, the terrible storm swept the whole space again. The last blow of Buddha's anger lotus and catching heaven's claw broke out completely. The mysterious space contains all the fighting strength of the 2 semi-imperialist strong men. One blow broke out completely, and the terrible fighting storm raged in this void. Among them, Xiao Yang and Haimu seemed to have nothing to do with it. With the explosion of 2 fighting skills, a huge mushroom cloud slowly formed in the void, and the terrible high temperature and grey and white fog filled the whole space in the twinkling of an eye. At a glance, in this space, all you can see is a grey one. In just a few breathing times, it's like a world has changed. At this time, Xiao Yang had the same complexion. The figure standing in the void was motionless, his eyes narrowed slightly, and a strange light flashed through his white pupils. His whole body was introverted, and the whole person was like an ordinary person without cultivation. The grey energy fog slowly diffused, and finally wrapped Xiao Yang. His sight was blocked. Xiao Yang simply closed his eyes and let the fog surround him. He always had a funny smile on his mouth. Shua. A sharp breaking wind sounded, and the energy fog in the space in front of Xiao Yang suddenly separated towards both sides. Immediately after that, the space in front of Xiao Yang's chest cracked a small space crack. A dry palm full of dark green and strange lines also poked out, and a palm pressed hard on Xiao Yang's chest. Bang! The next moment, a dull bang suddenly spread. In the void, Xiao Yang was still motionless. Looking at his chest again, the dry palm pressed hard was easily stopped by another white palm coming face to face. This hand seems casual, but at the moment when the 2 palms touch each other, the surrounding void suddenly collapses like a flooded dam. At the moment, the dry palm seems to have some irresistible meaning. The seemingly white palm has more power than it. Heh! At the moment of those 2 kinds of contact, there was also a surprise in the void. It was obviously surprised that Xiao Yang still had the power of resistance at the moment. What shocked him most was that the strength Xiao Yang showed at the moment was no less than he is now. How is it possible? With his current state, how can he have such strength again? No, it's impossible. In the void, Blackwood stared at the white palm with a shocked face, and he was even more surprised and uncertain in his heart. The fighting spirit gathered in the palm, and then the dry palm suddenly shook. While separated from the white palm, the surging fighting spirit in the palm suddenly gushed out and bombarded the white palm. At this moment, Xiao Yang's slightly closed eyes also suddenly opened. Two terrible beams of fire burst out from Sen's white pupils, burning all the fighting spirit from the bombardment. At the same time, the white palm was chasing after the victory. At the moment when the dark palm disappeared into the void, it blasted up. Then the next moment, just listen to a bang, the void in front of Xiao Yang suddenly burst, and a thin figure was blown out like a broken kite. Puff! When the figure forcibly stopped his body shape, he couldn't help spitting out a big mouthful of blood in his mouth. A pair of cloudy eyes looked at Xiao Yang hundreds of feet away with an unbelievable look. Ebony's body, which flew upside down, was shocked fiercely in the void, the soles of his feet stepped on the void, and his left palm backhand bombarded the void behind him. When the fighting spirit was thin, Blackwood stopped his body completely by the reaction force. I felt the sharp pain from my right arm. Even with Ebony's heart, the muscles at the corners of my mouth could not help but twitch violently. The palm that followed closely, but it was more terrible than the one in front. Out of guard, Haimu also suffered a big loss. When Haimu looked intently, he fixed his eyes on the pair of Mori white pupils of Xiao Yang. As soon as he saw this, Haimu's pupils suddenly shrunk. Recalling the two different fire beams just now, Haimu's heart trembled. After a good moment, his eyelids trembled and said, "You are not a rock owl." Listening to the affirmative words in Haimu's mouth, Xiao Yang also smiled at the corners of his mouth. Sen's white eyes stared at Haimu and said in the same tone, "You are not Aroki." When he said this, Blackwood's face immediately shook 3 times. The casual posture of Xiao Yang in front of him made him feel more dangerous. He can hide in Xiao Yang's body without checking. This alone shows that his strength is at least above fighting the Emperor. It can be said that Blackwood's strength is no more than 9 stars and a half emperors. Compared with this man, it's a world apart. Although Blackwood's strength at the moment is at least comparable to the 9-star half-emperor, the half-emperor is only half-emperor after all. Before the real fighting emperor, it is still so unbearable. At this moment, the gap between Haimu and Xiao Yang is like the gap between human-level fighting skills and Italian-level fighting skills. This is not just a gap of 1 star and 2 stars. If you want to describe it, it is a gap. Asshole. Who the hell is this boy? How can there be such an old demon in his body? At this time, Blackwood's face was completely gloomy. He did not expect that a half-emperor boy would make him so embarrassed as a strong man of Yuanzhong. He never thought that there would be a strong man fighting emperor in a small half-emperor. But no matter what he thinks, the current situation is that he has no way out. In front of the strong fighting emperor, his current strength is really not enough. However, in the next moment, Blackwood's heart, there was a glimmer of vitality again. His dark old eyes narrowed into a thin line and stared at Xiao Yang. The dignified look on his face slowly disappeared, and the corners of his mouth aroused a strange smile. He is Blackwood, but he may not really have no way back. Ha ha ha. A strong man who fights the emperor hides in the body of a half-emperor boy and doesn't dare to show people. Why, don't fight the emperor, only do these hidden villains. Suddenly, Blackwood raised his hair and burst into a mocking laugh. His dark old eyes stared at Xiao Yang opposite, showing a mocking color in their eyes. Xiao Yang had no change on his face. His eyes twinkled slightly. He also looked at Haimu and smiled softly. "Why, you just want to see my body?" Haimu smiled at the speech, flashed in his eyes, opened his mouth again and said with a smile, "What's wrong with seeing or not seeing a rat? It's a pity that I should die in the hands of an unknown villain. I'm really unwilling." In the end, Haimu didn't forget to shake his head and sigh, and this made him see that Xiao Yang on the opposite side had a stronger smile. He snorted coldly. Xiao Yang said with a sneer, "Since you want to see me so much, I'll let you die thoroughly." The voice fell, and a flash of pure light flashed in Haimu's eyes, and there was a sneer in his heart. Under the close gaze of Haimu's eyes, the fire seal in the center of Xiao Yang's eyebrows flickered slightly. Then, a faint forest white light group floated out slowly and gradually turned into a white-robed old man on the side of Xiao Yang's body. It was Jiuyu. At the same time that Guyo leaves Xiao Yang's body, Xiao Yang who fainted is also a soft body and wants to fall into the void. Jiuyu seemed to have expected this for a long time. His mind moved. Inspired by his sleeve robe, an invisible force swept out and held Xiao Yang's body flat in the void. At the moment when Jiuyu appeared, he kept staring at the black wood of Jiuyu, turned into a flash of body shape, left a residual shadow in place, and rushed towards Xiao Yang lying flat in the void. In Haimu's opinion, since the old man next to him hid in Xiao Yang's body and didn't hurt him, it shows that the relationship between the two is not simple. As long as he can control Xiao Yang, he can definitely make Guyo throw a rat's deterrent. Although from the moment it seems that Haimu's strength is obviously inferior to Guyo, Haimu is also confident that he can win Xiao Yang at the moment when Guyo leaves Xiao Yang's body. Although the distance of hundreds of feet is not short, it is just a moment for them who are semi-imperialist and strong. While Haimu's body shape disappeared, the space on one side of Xiao Yang's body in the void was violently distorted, and Haimu's body shape appeared in an instant. While Haimu appeared, his action did not stop at all. His dry palm bent into claws and quickly grabbed Xiao Yang's neck. All this is a long story, but it's just a matter between electricity, light, and flint. Until now, the other side of the bow knew, just now. And Haimu's claws are less than an inch away from Xiao Yang's neck. This distance, coupled with Blackwood's speed, even if a strong fighter stands aside, it is absolutely too late. At the moment, Xiao Yang is bound to fall into the palm of Haimu. But even at this time, Jiuyu, who had already reacted, was still indifferent, as if he was desperate, standing in place and motionless. When the remaining light in the corner of Haimu's eyes saw that Guyo had not made any action, his eyebrows wrinkled slightly, and he felt strange in his heart. With Jiuyu's strength, he should have reacted to Haimu's actions long ago. Even if he knew that Xiao Yang would still fall into his hands, he should not sit and wait to die. But now, Haimu is confused. However, the next moment, just as Haimu's fingertips touched Xiao Yang's collar, Xiao Yang's body entrusted to be held in the void was suddenly soft and fell towards the endless void below. Heh! At the sight of this scene, Blackwood's eyes suddenly coagulated slightly, and his heart also reacted quickly. His body shape above the void was forcibly reversed, and his backhand was a hard blow to the void behind him. Bang! At the moment of a blowout, the face-to-face void had burst, and a dry palm protruded out of thin air and blasted with Ebony's palm. The two palms roared. The imagined equal strength did not appear. On the contrary, Haimu was forcibly destroyed by a more overbearing force at the moment of contact. At the same time of the blood gushing out of his mouth, Haimu's body also fell rapidly towards the void below, and right below, it was Xiao Yang who fell together. The blood spewed out of Haimu's mouth turned into a blood arrow in the void and shot away at the opposite void. But just as the blood arrow was formed, a dark white fire appeared out of thin air, burning it into nothingness. But it was at this time that the falling Blackwood appeared again over Xiao Yang's head. Blackwood had a wicked smile on his mouth, and his eyes were almost ready to bite people. He stared at Xiao Yang who had been unconscious in front of him. As soon as his palm explored, he had fallen on Xiao Yang's face and wanted to control Xiao Yang in his hand. However, at the moment when Haimu's palm held it, Xiao Yang's body surface was puffed, raising a dark white strange fire, which wrapped Xiao Yang's whole body, while Haimu's palm was firmly pressed in the strange fire. Hiss! During the meal, a sound like a barbecue came out, accompanied by a faint smell of burnt barbecue meat. Blackwood's face, which had a wicked smile 1 second before, was suddenly twisted in the next second. The whole face seemed to be badly ravaged and twisted into a ball. It looked quite frightening. After a burst of hissing pain, Haimu fiercely pulled out his palm, and the fighting spirit in his body rushed out of his body. Under several violent shocks, the cold fire of the bone spirit still stuck on his palm was extinguished. When you look at it, it is already a skinny palm. At the moment, it has become a blur of flesh and blood. When you look carefully, the dense white bones under the skin are probably visible. In the palm, there are several thumb-sized blood holes. At a glance, it makes people feel cold behind their backs. Holding back the heart-piercing pain from his palm, Haimu's eyes quickly caught a fierce and cold killing intention. As soon as his eyes turned, his eyes instantly stared at the bones that had appeared on the void, and he immediately shouted angrily, What a hideous fellow! I didn't expect you to be so mean in fighting the Emperor." Jiyu heard that the cold light flickered in a pair of white pupils, and a sneer of disdain came out of his mouth, saying, "Ha ha! If you want to be mean, I'm really 1,000th less than you. A small semi-emperor is ashamed to be mean in front of me. What else can I do to deal with you?" When the voice fell, Jiyu waved his big sleeve, and after a while, a large group of bone spirit cold fire quickly spread from the void under his feet, filling a large void. When Haimu saw this hand, his face suddenly changed, and his body standing on the void suddenly retreated thousands of miles. After he withdrew from the shrouded area of bone spirit cold fire, he looked at Jiyu with fear, and his eyes showed an extremely dignified look. After a long time, the Chinese side of the mouth said with a little difficulty, Are you the master of that bone spirit cold fire?" Until now, Blackwood didn't fully understand that the old man in front of him was probably the master of the breath he had noticed before. Doesn't that mean that the strength of the old guy bent in Xiao Yang's body is at least the strong one of Yuanzong? When Jiyu heard the words in Haimu's mouth, he smiled coldly and made no comment. The same dry palm slowly raised, his index finger stretched out, and then he gently touched the void in front of him, and made a sound in his mouth at the same time, saying, "Forbidden." At the command, a Dawson white flame light column appeared out of thin air in the void within 100 feet around Haimu in the whole space. Hundreds of light columns are linked with each other, and only a few breathers form a different fire cage, trapping Blackwood in it. His eyes slowly swept through the strange fire cage that trapped him. At the moment, the look in Haimu's eyes was also very dignified, and his heart was filled with fear. He didn't expect that the old guy in Xiao Yang would be so powerful anyway. Just by the smell he felt before, the real strength of the old guy in front of him is stronger than his original peak. The old guy in front of us, actually powerful, but at least he has reached the great territory of Yuanzong. Just think about it like this, Haimu felt powerless in his heart. Yuanzong's strong man is not what he can deal with now. But how can Haimu be a person who can be willing at will? Although his strength is less than that of the other party, he was not a strong man in Yuanzong's great territory. What's more, Haimu has prepared for thousands of years to completely break free from the shackles of the Shenling family. Now he has come to such an end because of Xiao Yang. How can he swallow this tone? Even if I'm trapped, what can you do with me? No big deal, I'm just burning jade and stone with the master of this flesh. At the moment, Haimu was also very surprised. Although he was unwilling, he still had no way after all. The strength of Guyo on the opposite side is far better than him. Since he can't fight the enemy, he can only threaten him with green wood as the last barrier again. I believe that with green wood in hand, Guyo on the opposite side won't do it easily. It's just a pity that although Haimu has some confidence in his heart, there is one thing he never thought of. That is, Jiyu doesn't care about the life and death of Qingmu. What Jiyu cares about is just Xiao Yang. Therefore, after hearing the threatening words in Haimu's mouth, Guyo couldn't help hissing, raised his eyebrows and looked at Haimu. When Jiyu noticed the look on Haimu's face that seemed ready to die together, he finally burst out laughing. Then he stared at Haimu with an indifferent expression and said with a smile, "Why, do you want to threaten me with Aoki's life?" Listening to the strange meaning in Guyo's words, Haimu slowly put away the smile on his face, frowned, looked at Guyo with his eyes slightly narrowed, and slowly said, "Why, do you really want to kill me and Qingmu together? What do you think?" The words in Haimu's mouth just fell, and the voice of Guyo's words came out immediately. Hearing the indifference in Jiyu's words, the pair of pupils of Haimu suddenly shrunk. The heart just put down a little now hangs up again. Is it difficult? Does the old ghost in front of you really want to kill him and Qingmu? At the thought of this, Haimu was shocked all over, and there was a cold sweat on his forehead. His heartbeat became more intense at this moment, and his breathing also became rapid. After a good film was carved, Haimu suddenly remembered something. He quickly looked up at Guyo, but he just looked opposite to Guyo's pair of Mori white pupils. At the moment when the two looked at each other, it seemed that there was a terrible cold force, shooting at Blackwood in an instant, which made Blackwood quickly move his eyes away. At the moment when Haimu's eyes moved away, there was a cold air in the void in front of him. When Haimu looked carefully, the void in front of him was already frozen. The corners of his mouth twitched slightly, and there was a surge of anger in Haimu's heart. When the fighting spirit surged in his body, Haimu's palm waved fiercely, and a fighting spirit competition was shot out, smashing the cold ice in front of him. Soon Blackwood looked at Guyo again, snorted coldly, and said, Your Excellency is cruel and cruel. If you really have no worries, I'm afraid you'll die. However, I think your relationship with this rock owl should be different. If you're right, this boy is your disciple. As soon as he said this, Guyu immediately raised his eyebrows, and a surprised light flashed in his eyes, but there was still a sneer at the corners of his mouth. In front of Blackwood, he really thought a lot, but then again, he really thought of something. If you were someone else, Guyo would have ended it directly, but the key is that Qingmu has some relationship with Luo Laro outside, and this relationship is also beneficial to Xiao Yang. Otherwise, he doesn't bother to care about Qingmu and Haimu. As for the disciple, Guyo didn't want to think about it. He knew a lot about Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang also told him about the existence of Yarolaro. Therefore, even Guyo admitted that he was really not suitable to be Xiao Yang's teacher. Hey, you're not stupid. You know how to use him to contain me, but I'm not his teacher. Hearing Giyu's words, Haimu couldn't help but pick his eyebrows. Unexpectedly, Xiao Yang's teacher had another person. But at the same time, Haimu also breathed a sigh again in his heart. When his throat rolled, a smile floated on the corners of his mouth again, but just as he was about to speak, Guyo said again, "But what does this have to do with me? The boy knows him, but I don't know him. To put it bluntly, this Greenwood is just a Source King. I still despise him." Before the voice fell, Haimu's face changed again. He was angry and wanted to slap Guyu to death. But at this moment, a light cough attracted the eyes of Guyo and Haimu. Cough. In the void, Xiao Yang, whose face was still pale, slowly opened his eyes. Although Guyo had taken the pill for Xiao Yang, the excessive consumption of fighting spirit still made him very weak at the moment. But fortunately, at least now Xiao Yang has been able to do some activities. He stood up with a little effort and saw Guyu on one side. Xiao Yang nodded with gratitude in his eyes, and Guyu smiled accordingly. He turned his head and continued to look at Haimu and said with a smile, "Hey, if it weren't for my life today, you would be dead." Xiao Yang smiled. He naturally knew that if there was no bone, he was afraid that he was still bound in the rattan ball and could only wait for death. But he also knew that Guyo would help him, so he was brave enough to fight with the old ghost 10,000 years ago. Rock Owl, I didn't expect that there would be such an old demon in your body. I really despise you, but I want to see if your amulet will really kill me with the master of this body." Haimu stared at Xiao Yang with both eyes. He didn't dare to relax at all. He had made up his mind. If Xiao Yang really dared to ignore Qingmu's life and death, he must not die well. Hearing the words spoken by Haimu, Xiao Yang immediately raised his eyebrows. The relationship between Aoki and Luo Laro is extraordinary. No matter who is trying to win over, Xiao Yang will never ignore Aoki's life and death. Oh, well, there's so much nonsense. I said that before just to amuse you, but now, since the boy has woken up, I don't have to play with you anymore. Without waiting for Xiao Yang to act, Guyu looked at Haimu with a sneer. The palm under his sleeve robe slowly stretched out and held it slowly in the void. At the same time, the strange fire cage that trapped Blackwood also became smaller and smaller. Hey, next, you just give me your life. This video will end here.